anyone can do this. I mean, anyone your age can rise up to these challenges. And, you know, so what would your advice be to, you know, teens that are hesitant to do hard things?
Yeah, well, what we would say to young people, because, you know, oftentimes the first reaction to do hard things is uh-oh, that does not sound fun, that sounds tiring, that sounds miserable. And what we found, though, is that once young people, all they need to do, we don't usually have to argue with young people about this.
We actually have never had to argue.
We've never had to, we've never had to argue with anyone. What we do is ask them to check out the stories, to read the stories, read what God is using young people to accomplish, and hear their voice. And what usually happens then, and what we found to happen in almost every case, is that it suddenly clicks. It makes sense. They recognize it, and they've deep in their hearts been, you know, knowing that there's an alternative. There has to be something more to the teen years than what culture is telling me. And once they see it, it just comes, you know, very clear, right into focus for them, and they're quick to embrace it, even though it's more difficult, even though it's more challenging. It's not as comfortable, but it's exciting. It's fulfilling. It's the life they were meant to live. It's their best life.
Yeah. Well, so many, you know, people in our culture are busy pursuing their, you know, their easiest life, and they don't realize that that's not their best life. You know, it reminds me of, there's certain creatures that live like in the deep bottom of the ocean, you know, where there's no light, they've never come in contact with a hard surface their entire existence, and they actually become translucent and just like totally, you know, mush,
part of it,
you know, and they're just down there. And that's the kind of thing we're trying to do. We're trying to avoid difficulty. We're trying to avoid challenging ourselves. We're trying to live our easiest life, and that's really a lonely, miserable life in the end. And it's not the life God's called Christians to live. He calls us to do hard things because He says, you know, with Christ, you know, nothing is impossible. You know, we can work through His strength, and so He calls us to do things that are beyond our strength. And unless we trust Him enough to step outside our comfort zone, we're never going to experience Him working through us to impact people.